Hi, bestie. Welcome back to my podcast. I want to scream right now, so I'm so sorry this episode is late. Basically, yesterday I recorded an entire episode and then did not realize I'm very much someone who refuses to read instructions, and I still do after this point today and yesterday, but I don't know how to use my soundboard with my new mic. And so I've just been kind of playing around with settings and guessing around. I'm going to call Guitar Center today and be like, can you please explain to me how to use this? But I recorded an entire episode and it was one of my longest episodes too. And then I went to play it back before I sent it over to my editor. And the whole half of the episode recorded in this super high pitched sped up audio. And then it also just stopped recording midway through because my laptop ran out of space. So I'm sorry it's late. There were just some technical difficulties. And then this morning I was playing around with it for literally 45 minutes before I finally got it to stop being high pitched and sped up. So sorry that this episode is late, but I'm here and I love you. And this will be up probably a day late. So please forgive me. But anyway, I've talked to you before about how I've just been I know I've been talking about this a lot lately, but just kind of a rut this past year. I got really in my head and I think I let what people were saying get to me a little too much, and I stopped wanting to post and got in just such a major posting rut, and I've been trying to really get out of that, and I feel like I'm finally coming out of that now. I think probably another big thing to do with that is Prozac has really helped, and I just increased my dosage from 20 to 40 milligrams. So I really think there's definitely a correlation between me feeling like I can post again and the Prozac. So if you were like me, and if you are like me and hesitant to go on anxiety meds, I was for so long, and now I'm why the hell did I not do that sooner? Because I'm feeling so much better. But anyway, my point being with this whole spiel is that I've been trying to be more active on Instagram too, not just TikTok. And I have been doing little bestie check-ins on there. And I have got to say, so many people are going through breakups right now. And I am so sorry if you are one of them, because I do not think there is a worse pain than breakup pain, especially when you're the one who's been broken up with. It is seriously, the feeling of rejection is just so terrible. And I know I already did a breakup episode, but I never talked about my worst breakup. And this was my worst breakup was my most recent breakup, and I've been single for 4 years since. So I thought I would just do a whole episode on that breakup and that relationship today, because it was it's funny, haha, looking back, but it was insane in the moment. I don't know about you, but the one thing that's always really helped me, and I think I said this before, and if you haven't heard my other breakup episode and you're going through a breakup, it's a few episodes back if you want to listen to it. But something that's always helped me is just going, I'd always go on YouTube and look up breakup story times, and it helped me so much, because I think the hardest part for breakups for me personally is feeling I'm so isolated in this feeling, and no one knows what I'm going through, and I'm never gonna get over it. Every single breakup, I end up making it through, obviously, out the other side, but when you're in it, you feel you're the only one who's feeling this way, and it's never going to get better, and you're never going to go over this person, and you thought you were going to marry them. Sometimes I'll even watch divorce story times, but hopefully I'm never giving you a story time on my divorce. I really don't want to get divorced, but I did have a psychic tell me that I was going to get divorced multiple times in my future, but she was a palm reader in Salem, Mass, and she also told my friend she's from a different planet. So I really hope that she is not right about my multiple divorces, but maybe, no, I'm not even gonna manifest or joke about that. I'm not getting divorced. Anyway, my point being, I find so much comfort in hearing other people's stories and seeing not that I'm happy other people are in pain, but misery loves company, and I love hearing other people be upset about breakups, because then it makes me feel less weird. And then it's also nice if the video is a year old and they have an update and they're oh my gosh, I'm over my breakup. So that's always helped me. So I'm here to help you today if you're going through a breakup, or if you just want to hear how insane my most recent ex-boyfriend is. We broke up in 2019. We broke up 2019 in September. So I'm going on next okay, hopefully by next September, I will no longer be single, but it's been like 4.5 years of me being single. And I think a big part of the reason I've been single is this relationship, like seriously, like messed with my mental so much that I needed like a long breather after this relationship, which was not intentional. Like I wanted to immediately get into another relationship, and like I hate being single, but I think it's been good for me to like be single and like figure this out. But anyway, I'll just get into the story because this man is seriously insane, and I bet you $1 million he is listening to this podcast right now. So if you're listening to this, hi, hope you're doing well. But anyway, my most recent and last boyfriend, like serious boyfriend, I started dating my senior year of college, and it's always the ones that like you're not interested in at first and like you have to convince yourself that you like them. They're always the ones who destroy you the most. So, and I think like that was part of his game, seriously. But basically, I went to Suffolk University in Boston, if you didn't know. Celia and I would always go to this club, Bijou. And if you live in Boston, maybe you've been, but I feel like that's where like I'd meet all the guys I dated in college, aside from like my boyfriend before. But there was this one night when we were there, and Celia and I were like at a different friend's table, and then there was a guy next to us, and he had a hat on, but he looked so cute and so handsome, and I was like getting over like a kind of situationship ending, feeling a little sad, whatever. And so I like went up to him, we made eye contact, we like started having drinks together and hung out for the rest of the night. And it was so perfect too, because Celia thought his best friend, well, I don't know if it was his best friend, but like one of his good friends, she thought one of his good friends was really cute too. So it worked out perfectly, because then at the end of the night, we went back to his house, and I just will never forget this moment. So I thought this guy was so cute until we go into his bedroom. Like everyone's like done drinking. I decided to sleep over. We go into this man's bedroom, and he takes his hat off, and he is completely bald. And I was so horrified. I was like, I am absolutely not hooking up with this man. Like I had no idea he was just completely bald. The hat was very deceiving. And so I fell asleep in this man's bed because I was like, I am not hooking up with him. And then in the morning, I woke up and like kind of like turned my head and just like once again like had the realization that I was in bed with a bald, strange man. So I like, Celia was asleep on his couch, so I crept out of his room without waking him up. And I was like, Celia, the man in there is bald and we need to go right now. I had no idea he was bald, but he is very bald and we have to go. So we snuck out of his apartment, and I didn't plan on ever speaking to this man again. And you know what? Honestly, I think everything happens for a reason. So I was going to say maybe things would have been better, but I think everything happens for a reason. So yeah, but I really didn't think that he was like even capable of ever breaking my heart, because he was so bald and I was just like so horrified. But then like a few months go by, and he just like continues to message me on Instagram like every single day. I didn't give him my number, I don't think, but he would like DM me all the time, like always trying to take me on dates. Like I remember even on Valentine's Day, he was like messaging me like asking to like take me out for a Valentine's date. And I would always decline him. I just like wasn't interested. I got such, you know, when you get such a strong ick, you're just like, ew. And they keep messaging you, and the ick gets stronger and stronger and stronger. So I never planned on speaking to this man again. But then fast forward like 2.5 months later, Celia and I are back at Bijou. And once again, we're at a table next to his table. And once again, he's in a hat. Okay. And this man looks great in a hat. He looks so good in a hat. He looks so like very, very attractive, handsome man in a hat. And so I turned again, saw he was in a hat, and once again fell in love. So like I went up to him and I was like, hey, sorry I haven't messaged you back, because I realized that I wanted this man now because he looked so handsome. And he was with another girl. So I went up to him and was talking, and he was with another girl, but he said that it was just like his friend who was visiting. He did not tell me they were hooking up. And so I was like, oh, like, do you want to hang out after? and he rejected me and was like, no, like I have to hang out with my friends, and like you haven't been messaging me back, so like I don't want to hang out tonight. And I was so bummed because now I realize this man looks great in a hat once again, and he rejected me. And I really think this was part of his evil plan. Seriously. Like, I think this was so intentional because, side note, like years later, I found his YouTube channel because I was just like bored and like stalking him online. And I found his YouTube channel, and like he has like this whole playlist on his YouTube channel of like videos talking about how to manipulate women. So I really think like, and he's very smart. I really think he like taught himself like what's the best way to like get a woman to be obsessed with you, and he's very good at it. He's great at what he does. So I went home that night and I was so bummed because I was like, wow, I really fumbled. Like I fumbled this crazy. And I think I texted him the next morning or something again, and I was like, hey, like sorry, like if you ever want to like get drinks or something, let me know. And he ended up messaging me back, and I think we went on a date like 2 days later, and I knew we were gonna date from like this first date. I actually, once I got to know him and was like on this date with him, we like really, really clicked and really vibed, and I realized he actually looked fine without the hat on. I think it was just like the initial shock of him being so bald, but then once I got used to it, I was like, wait, you actually are cute without your hat. But it was just so great because we went on this date, we went back to his house, we didn't hook up and like at all, we just like kissed, which I mean in college was very rare for me. I feel like I always slept with people like the first time we hung out, so there was kind of like this like mystery of like, oh my gosh, like we haven't slept together and this is like our second time hanging out. And I was leaving for Miami the next day with Celia, and Celia and I like forever always look back on this trip to Miami and like say it was like seriously the best trip we've ever had together. Like I don't think I will ever have a better vacation than this trip to Miami because it was our senior year. It was our last like vacation together like while we were still in college, and Celia was talking to his friend, I was talking to him. I had this great date with him the night before. We weren't dating yet, but like we were definitely like heading in that direction, and like so we were both excited about different guys, and he was like maybe going to be coming down to Miami for like the end of the trip, so I was so excited that he might be there. He didn't end up coming, but he said he was going to. And I remember like I just like really decided I liked him so much when I was there, and was like texting him the whole time, and Celia would post an Instagram story and he would like respond to it about me, and then the guy she was talking to would respond to my stories about her. It was like very cute and fun. So there was so much like, the point is there was so much build up, and then I went back to Boston and he and I like had plans for a date, and he took me to breakfast, which I found so sweet. Like once again, like wasn't trying to hook up with me and was taking me to like very nice restaurants. I think for breakfast we went to like Four Seasons breakfast like restaurant in that hotel, and it was like great. Like I really liked him. He seemed really respectful, and it seemed like it was like going slow but fast at the same time, and he was just like really like winning me over, if you will. And I remember like after I went to breakfast with him, I had to go to my parents' house for the weekend, and after we went to breakfast and had that breakfast date, like I was so antsy because I thought we were gonna date, but I had to go to my parents' house for the weekend and like didn't get to see him on the weekend. But when I got back, he like took me to dinner and asked me to be his girlfriend, and like in retrospect, things moved like very fast, and we'd only hung out 3 times before he asked me to be his girlfriend. And I remember feeling like that was a little weird, for sure. Like I thought it was a little fast, but I liked him so much that I was just kind of like, whatever, like why would I not say yes? Like I'll probably end up wanting to date him anyway. So we started dating, and I would say like the first 2 weeks of our relationship were great. Smooth sailing, great, classic love bomber. He like would take me on like these extravagant dinners and get me like these nice gifts, and like was so kind and sweet and caring. And I was like, I literally hit the jackpot and met my husband. Like this guy is just so great and so kind. And like we didn't even sleep together until we started dating, and I think he's like one of the only people that I've dated that I waited to have sex with until like we were officially dating. I mean, it was only 3 times, but still. And so the first 2 weeks were like great, but then things just started to go downhill, and this man is like a master manipulator. I did not know what gaslighting was until like a year after dating him, when I like told a therapist about it, because I just could not get over this relationship. But after the first 2 weeks, things started to get weird. And it started with, look, he would have all these after parties, and after like we would go to the club, and that's fine and whatever, but it would be just like him and a ton of girls, which, I mean, if I'm invited, whatever, but there were multiple times where like he would not even tell me he was going out, and then I would see through someone else's story that like he had all these girls over and did go out and was like having a party, drinking at his apartment. So I remember one night, this was like the first like quote unquote fight we had, probably like 2.5 weeks into our relationship. I saw through another girl's story that even though he told me he was not going out that night, he had gone out and was having one of his like big after parties at his house. And she was like, it was like a video of them like caressing each other in his kitchen. So obviously I was very upset. So I called him and I was like, what the hell? Like, you told me you weren't even going out, and like now like you are like caressing another girl in your kitchen. And this is where he started to get just so manipulative. Instead of like, he knew obviously that like he was like caught red-handed, and he was like, I told her to delete that. And then he was like, but to be honest, she told me something about you, and that's why I didn't invite you, because I don't know if I can trust you anymore. And he was like, if you want to come over and talk things out, we can, but I just don't know if we can continue this relationship. And so I like go over to his house, and I'm so nervous. It's like 2 a.m. I like got up and Ubered over. And when I got there, he took me outside and told me that this girl had told him that last weekend she saw me doing coke in his bathroom. And he knew like my history with drugs, and like I did a lot of drugs in high school and my first year of college, but I have not done any drug or put any substance up my nose since I was 19. I don't even smoke weed anymore. Wish I could smoke weed, but I get so paranoid. But anyway, like point being, like I don't do drugs, never will again, like have not for so many years. And so he told me that like he didn't trust me. He didn't want to like be dating someone who still did drugs, and he didn't think I still did drugs, but I was like caught red-handed in his bathroom. And I told him like over and over, like I would never, like I don't do coke, and I didn't do coke in your bathroom. And so then like after a while of talking, like I think he made me like start crying, and then he was like, okay, like I believe you. And then he was like, well, I guess we can go up. I just didn't know if I could continue this relationship, and that's why I didn't invite you tonight. And so now I'm feeling guilty. I'm feeling weird. And like, I'm just so grateful that we've like made up, and like upset with this girl. And it started like this weird beef with this girl. So I think like the weekend later, she was like back at his house, and I pulled her aside and was like, hey, can we talk for a second? And I like brought her into his bedroom and closed the door. And I was like, could I just ask you like why you would say like such like a blatant lie about me? Like, do we have a problem with each other? Because like I don't want to. And she was like, what are you talking about? And I was like, I know you told him that like you saw me doing coke in his bathroom. And she was genuinely like so confused. Like she did not say that. And like looking back now, I think he definitely just made that up and wanted an excuse as to why they were hanging out so closely that night and why he didn't invite me. I don't think anyone ever said I was doing coke in the bathroom. I think that was just his way of getting out of that first situation. And things like this would just start to happen all the time, like shady things that would give me like just a bad gut feeling. I remember another time. Remember how I told you like that night he rejected me? He was with a girl who he said was just his friend, whatever. And he couldn't hang out with me that night because he was like with her, and like I didn't text him back, whatever. Turns out like they were hooking up, and he later admitted that to me. They were hooking up like right before we started dating. And on his birthday, he had like a little pre-game birthday party, and then we went to Bijou for his birthday. Like I feel like Bijou is like the reoccurring theme here. And he had this girl who he used to hook up with like right before we started dating over at his house to hang out like privately, just the two of them, to celebrate his birthday before anyone else got there. Like I wasn't invited to show up until his friends showed up, which I just think is weird for sure. And I'm sure they probably did hook up. And I was like obviously upset about that, but he was very flirty with girls and like had very close friendships with girls, and it turns out later it's because they were all hooking up, but he would always just blame it on his culture. And like at the time I was like very unfamiliar with his culture. We had just started dating, and I didn't want to ever disrespect him or his culture, obviously. So I would kind of just be like, oh, okay. And I feel like he would kind of get away with things because I didn't ever want to be disrespectful to anyone. And so I think that was his excuse for like having this girl over privately before to celebrate his birthday, just the two of them. And I believed him at the time. And I came over later that night and got him a birthday gift. And it was awkward because we had only been dating like for a few weeks before his birthday. I think maybe we were like a month in. And so I didn't know what to get him, but I like spent so much on him for a first birthday present after only dating a month. And I did not have like money in college to be spending. Like I didn't have any money. The only money I would make would be from like selling stuff on Depop and Poshmark. But that was another thing he would always like hold over my head. Like this man was like very, very, very wealthy, and he'd always kind of like put me down in a weird way. So he made me feel like very insecure. Like he'd always be like, oh, like I only have $10,000 to go shopping this weekend. I don't know how I'm going to make it. Like just like weird, like obviously trying to make me feel uncomfortable. So I like used like the money I had made from selling stuff on like Poshmark to get him this off-white t-shirt. And then I made like a little cute care package kind of with like his favorite snacks, and then like I got him like his favorite Jewel pods and like his favorite cigarettes, and like kind of like tied them in a bow like for like a little party gift, and then like got a bottle of champagne, like a nice bottle. And I mean, I probably spent like $600-$700 on his gift, and we've been dating for like 3 weeks, and I was a college student that did not have money to be spending like that at all. I probably did Afterpay for sure on the t-shirt, but I went and gave him the gift, and he like opened it, and like first he looks at the t-shirt like with disgust, and he's like, this t-shirt is way too big. Like I will never be able to fit in this. It's so baggy. And so I start like instantly feeling embarrassed. And then he like takes out like the Jewel pods, and he's like, I don't even like this flavor Jewel pod, which like he did. And then he like looks at like the bottle of champagne, and he's like, why would you get me champagne? Like, do you like champagne? And then he was like, I mean, if you want to drink this tonight, you can. And so like I was so excited to give him this gift, and then felt so uncomfortable because he like was so disgusted with my gift. And then like I was like very insecure in this relationship and just felt so bad. So I'm already feeling weird. And then we go to the club, and I think I left to go to the bathroom for a second. And when I was gone, I came back out, and he was dancing with that girl that he had over right before his birthday pre-game started, who we used to hook up with very recently. And they were not just like dancing, haha, like they were like very like all up on each other dancing together. And I like walked up to him, and I was like, what the hell? And I left. Like I walked out of Bijou and like left, and I was not going to come back. And he followed me out and told me that I was just being very disrespectful because I should have had all my focus on him that night because it was his birthday. Because I wasn't paying attention to him, he had no choice but to dance with this girl because he looked so dumb on his birthday having a girlfriend who disrespected him. And I was not disrespecting him. I was in the bathroom. So you get the point. Like things like this would happen all the time. And I just had like these weird gut feelings. And he started to get really controlling with me. I think this was like the first night where he would slowly like put me down and then be super, super nice, and then put me down and be super, super nice. And it was like a very toxic but like well done like routine until I like felt so controlled by him. I remember one night when we were leaving Bijou, this was probably like 2 months into dating, I was talking to my friend outside who was a guy, but like very much a platonic friend, and I had asked him for a cigarette on the way home, and my boyfriend was like off talking to his friends, and he like turned and saw me talking to this guy and didn't even say anything, just like stormed away. he knew my phone was dead. It was 2 a.m. My friends left the club. I was supposed to go back with him. And instead, he just like left me there. So I go and I walk to his apartment building and have them like call up to his like apartment and tell him I'm there because he knew my phone was dead and I had like no way of getting home. And he would not let me up that night. And I ended up like going home sobbing. I had the concierge charge my phone, went home and like sobbed. And then he still wouldn't talk to me the next day. And I think I ended up sending him an edible. I sent him an edible arrangement with an apology note because I spoke to another man outside. And he finally forgave me, but he was like, if you ever disrespect me like that again. If you see the pattern, he would always say like I was disrespecting him. And so I had to like apologize up and down, and it got to the point where I could no longer like speak to other guys unless they were his friends and he was like right next to me. So that's when it started to get definitely very toxic. And then he was just like a master liar. I remember there was another night where I like told him, so after this whole conversation about like I can't speak to guys anymore, Celia like likes this guy and he's having a pregame. She wanted me to go with her to this pregame, and he was so pissed at me because like there were going to be other guys there, but I had to be a good friend to Celia because she liked this guy and I wasn't going to make her go to a pregame by herself. So I went with her, and he told me that he wasn't going to go out that night. And like acted like he was not mad at me at all, whatever. And so we go to this pregame, and then we like just ended up at Bijou, and like I told him on the way like, hey, I'm headed to Bijou. And then he panics and he like FaceTimes me, and he's like, oh my gosh, like I'm here, like I knew you would end up here and I'm here to surprise you. And they would sell these roses at Bijou, so he like bought a rose and was like, I just like had such a gut feeling you were going to show up here. That's why I'm here. Like I just wanted to surprise you. Like I wasn't lying. And so yeah, he would do stuff like this all the time. And then I think things got really toxic after I graduated. I remember on my graduation day actually, because like any big day for me, he had to like take away and make negative. So I was excited on my graduation. We went to breakfast together before I like went to go graduate. And he was so rude at breakfast, refused to speak to me and like acted mad at me for like no reason, to the point where I started crying and like went to graduation like crying. So he just had issues and refused to hang out with me the night I graduated. He just wanted to make it like a thing. Then he threw a graduation party for himself that I wasn't invited to. So you get the point. He made me insecure. And then I had graduated college and I was living in Boston, but I moved home to my parents' house for the summer because I was moving to New York like a few months later to go to law school. And so our relationship became long distance, and that's where things got so bad because he got so crazy possessive of me. He made me share his location with him, but it wasn't in like a safety way. It was like he was like watching my every move, and I had his location too, but I learned later that he would like keep his phone at home when he went places. And he also, side note, when I would like see his location, like he lived across from a gym that had like also apartment buildings in the top. And he would always tell me like when he was mad at me, he'd go to the gym. He would always tell me like, haha, it's not like a glitch. It's like, I'm really seeing like my secret girlfriend there. Like I'm actually in that location. And basically, yeah, it turns out like he was not lying. Like he was making this joke, but he really did have a secret girlfriend who lived across the street. So whenever he'd get pissed at me, he'd go to the gym, but he was really seeing another girl. Anyway, I found that out like a year after we broke up. But we shared locations, and he had to be somehow, I don't even know how he managed this, but he was logged into all my like accounts. So he was logged into my email, he was logged into my Instagram, and he was logged into my Facebook. And when I first saw, I remember I was like at the gym at home and like got a notification that someone from his address like logged into my Instagram account. So I called him and I was like, what the hell? And he told me that it was an accident and he doesn't even know how he logged in, but he'll log out right now. And of course he ended up like accidentally logging back in. And so he had access to like my entire everything I've ever had on Instagram. So I told you that he would like to ruin like any big day for me, like anything that was like a big exciting deal he would try to make negative. And so when I moved to New York, I drove there with my mom, like was all excited. It was going to be my first time living by myself. I had little baby Cleo and Luna. Actually, no, they didn't come with me yet because I wasn't like fully moving in, but we were like bringing all the furniture and like getting it ready for me to full-time move in. And so as we're driving about like a half an hour in, I like hear my phone buzzing like over and over and over again. And I look down and see that like he's disgusted with me and he's broken up with me. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? So I call him and he tells me that he went through every single one of my Instagram DMs ever, didn't realize that I was that type of girl and that I'm absolutely disgusting, and he now sees who I really was. And he also like, I had told him about my boyfriend prior, the guy I told you about who like had the mental health issues and did all the crazy stuff. I had like told him like that was an abusive relationship and told him about that. But me and that guy had broken up like many times throughout the relationship. And when we would break up for like months at a time, yes, I would message other guys because we were broken up. But he told me like he put the timelines of when we were dating, not me and him, but me and my ex-boyfriend, when me and my ex-boyfriend were dating together, and convinced himself that I cheated on my ex-boyfriend. And he was like, if you could cheat on your ex-boyfriend, then you could cheat on me, because he saw I was like messaging guys and he thought whatever. And also, if someone's like that obsessive about you cheating on them, it's because they're cheating on you. But anyway, so then this like exciting day where I'm moving to New York turns into me sobbing the whole drive there. I'm so upset. And once I get to New York, he like finally agrees to speak to me after I've spent the whole 4-hour drive with my mom, like sobbing. It was not a fun drive. He told me that he had thought about it, and while he thought like I was disgusting, he still had a deep love for me, and I should just feel so lucky because like he now knows what kind of girl I am, and no one else would ever want me, but like he'll keep me. And so he did like this awful thing of like violating my privacy and reading all of my messages from like forever, and I didn't do anything wrong. But now he has me like apologizing to him and being like, okay, like please, like thank you, forgive me. And that's kind of where the really intense manipulation happened, and where I started to feel so panicky. I remember like a week later I went on vacation with my parents, and we were at the beach, and I think I was only going with him for like a day or two, and he knew I was going to the beach with my parents, and I had my phone like up in the little beach house we were staying in, and it didn't have service because it wasn't connected to Wi-Fi, and there was like bad service there. Anyway, I like go back up, connect it to Wi-Fi, and have like a million texts from him, and he's like, I know you're lying, I know you're not at the beach. And he made me send like 50 videos like of proof that I was like actually there, and kept saying each time I sent a video that like it wasn't a live time video, just once again to like ruin another trip of mine. Like I could never just like have a trip. And he even texted my mom, and he was like, how is the beach with Callie? But he worded it in a way that seemed like he was being like sweet and was just like checking in to see how our beach trip was, but really he was like, he did not believe I was there. And so it went from just like this like crazy control and possessiveness and shadiness, like he was definitely cheating on me the whole time, to then like it got like a little, not like extremely physical, but he would just start to do weird things. So like, for example, he would always bite me really, really hard. I read a book recently where this girl was talking about how like, it was like a fictional book, but like how like biting was the first thing in her abuse. And like, I never thought that was like abusive. I thought it was just like weird. He'd bite me really hard and it would hurt, but like I never thought that was like actually like a thing until like I thought about it recently. I was like, oh, maybe that was something. And I remember the first time like he really whatever like stuck out to me, we got in like a really stupid fight, and I was trying to like hug him to like be like, I'm sorry, even though like it was definitely something I did not need to be sorry for, per usual, because it was never whatever. And so I was hugging him, and then he like pinched my legs super, super, super hard and would not let go. And it was to the point where like I got this massive bruise and like my leg went numb. And so obviously I got upset with him, and I told him like that was like borderline like abusive. And instead of like apologizing, he turned on me. And I told you before, he would always bring up my ex-boyfriend, and like he was convinced I cheated on my ex-boyfriend, which I didn't. And also, why would that be affecting? Like he openly admitted to me he cheated on all of his ex-girlfriends. I don't know, whatever, but like I didn't. But he would always like bring my ex-boyfriend into the conversation, like sticking up for him in this weird way. And so when I like accused him of being abusive for pinching me, he told me I was being ridiculous. And if I think a pinch is abuse, then I, of course, was lying about like anything my ex-boyfriend did because I'm just crazy and delusional. And he takes my ex-boyfriend's side when he wasn't even in the conversation. So he ends up storming out, going to the quote unquote gym, which is actually his like secret other girlfriend's house that he would like joke about having, but she really existed. And like finally, like hours later, he comes back and I'm just sitting in his apartment sobbing because I don't live in Boston anymore. So I was visiting him. And he like finally comes back and I have to like apologize over and over and over again. And he finally is like, okay, like I guess I'll forgive you. And so he would do things like that all the time. And like even like I think the pinching was so intentional because when you say like someone pinched me, it sounds so stupid. And he knew that, like he would know that sounds stupid. And then, but like obviously like that is, you know, like my leg bruised and went numb. And then another time, I always joke that like I just have terrible luck with Lil Wayne concerts. Obviously we'll never go to one again, but you know my ex-boyfriend, when I tried to go to a concert with him, he ended up like running away and a helicopter searched for him. And then this boyfriend, fast forward, we go to a Lil Wayne concert. He's visiting me in New York in my apartment, and we go to like, we're like walking around and we see like there's like a like advertisement that Lil Wayne's performing at Barclays that night. And he was like, oh, like, do you want to go? Like, this would be fun. And so he buys us tickets last minute and we go. And it was like so fun. We got drinks and we're just having like, we had like a great night. And I always say that these concerts bring me bad luck, specifically him, because then another terrible night happened. We go back to my apartment and I'm like joking around with him and I very jokingly slap him. Like, and when I say slap, I mean like gently tap on the face, like haha, like just like a joke. And he turns around and slaps me back across the face so hard, gets super serious and tells me if I ever disrespect him again, he will bash my head into a cement wall, quote unquote. I'll never forget that quote. And so I was just like, what the hell? And I remember going to bed. I just went to sleep after. And I remember like waking up in the morning and Googling like, is it abusive if your boyfriend slaps you across the face? Which like, obviously that's not okay. And he wakes up in the morning and he's like, obviously knows what happened the night before. So he's like, you're acting so weird this morning. And I'm like, yeah, well, I think last night was very weird. And I didn't want to call it abusive because I knew he'd get pissed off if I said that. But I was like, I think last night was very weird. And then he goes, oh, this, and he like jokingly, like very lightly slaps me across the face. And he's like, you thought I was being serious? Like that was a joke. Come on. Like, you know, I was joking. And so then like, I started to think like, maybe I am crazy and like, maybe it was a joke and I'm just being weird. And so he was a master gaslighter. And this became such a theme of our relationship where he would do terrible things that I had such a right to be upset for, but then make me feel like I was crazy to think that either these things were terrible or that they even happened in the first place because everything was just a quote unquote joke. I remember another time, my cat before Cleo and Luna, I adopted her when she was 12 and I had to get her put down. And my mom called me because I was visiting in Boston and she had to bring her to the emergency vet and she had to get put down because she had something like a tumor in her throat. And we didn't realize how bad it was because the vet couldn't really figure it out until we brought her to the emergency vet. Anyway, I was visiting him and I told him that like I had to go drive to the emergency vet to go put her down. Like, would he please come with me? And he refused to come with me. Not only did he refuse to come with me, then I call him like obviously sobbing on the drive there. I'm like, I'm so upset, like, because I have to put my cat down. And he starts screaming at me, telling me how manipulative I am for crying. And I'm trying to make him feel bad. And instead of comforting me because I'm putting my cat down, he is like instead like yelling at me, saying how I'm just trying to make him feel bad and it's not his fault he can't come with me. Like he just doesn't feel comfortable coming. And then the next morning, he like turns around and because I like went back to his house after. I shouldn't have, but I did. And I'm like so upset. And he's like, I just didn't realize how much it meant to you. Like I now understand like you were upset and I'm like so sorry. And Whatever. So you get the point. He was very manipulative. And then shortly after this, he came up with this rule that I was no longer allowed to cry. And if I ever cried, it was manipulative. And so I'm now living in New York. We're long distance. I'm starting law school and I'm not allowed to ever cry. And so even if it's like about like not even about him, but like I'm like stressed about class and like stressed about like just beginning law school, if I ever cried, every single time I would shed any tear or show really any other emotion except for like complete happiness, he would say that I was pushing him closer to him breaking up with me and I needed to be careful because I don't want to lose him, and if I act this way, I'm going to push him to break up with me. So it got to this point where I became so numb because I felt like, number one, I was insane. Number two, like no one else would ever want to be with me. And number three, like I couldn't show any emotion or else he would get upset. So I had to like always pretend to be happy. And it just became so toxic and a lot to deal with like in law school. But I was so like, I mean, I had just moved to New York and I knew no one. And I was at like a new school and it was law school. It was scary. And like he was like my one comfort because I would visit him on the weekends or he would visit me. And I remember he just became more and more and more distant. About like a week into law school was my birthday. My birthday is August 30th, so it's always like the first or second week of law school. And he knew I didn't have any friends in New York, so if I was going to do something for my birthday, I'd have to plan ahead and have a friend visit. But he told me he was going to visit. And so we had like all these plans and I was so excited. And like 2 days before my birthday, he tells me he can no longer come visit me on my birthday. And like he now knows like it's not enough time for me to like have a friend come visit, and like I'm now gonna have to like spend it by myself. And I didn't know anyone. And I remember like with my two friends who I became very close with in law school, like trying not to cry around them, being like, yeah, it's my birthday, but I guess I'm just gonna go home and spend it by myself. Then he ignores me the entire weekend and he's like, oh, like I guess I'll get you a gift, and he just sends me a link to this like random Balenciaga bag, which like, yeah, it was nice, but I would have rather he like sent me like a $2 card and like something actually thoughtful. But instead he just like is like, pick what color you want, and like sends it to me, no thought. I didn't even like Balenciaga at the time. Like I don't know why he like, you know what I mean, like he was just trying to like blow me off. Doesn't speak to me. Then I wake up on my birthday like late. He still hasn't called and it's like 12 p.m. He finally FaceTimes me and doesn't say happy birthday. Like on purpose, we talk for like an hour. I hang up and I'm so upset because I don't even like my birthday at all. I feel really awkward about my birthday, but the fact that he didn't even say like happy birthday, obviously I started crying. And then he like, oh, it was like, oh my gosh, like I meant to say happy birthday. Did I not say it? And like he did that intentionally because he wanted to ruin like seriously every single day for me. And he ended up like going out to the club on my birthday, and I was like by myself in my apartment with Cleo and Luna, like so upset. So anyway, you get the point. It was very toxic and very manipulative, and this breakup I think was the worst breakup ever, because now, enough rambling about the whole relationship, this is where I feel like I hopefully painted a good enough picture. Sorry, this is like so all over the place, but it was 4 years ago, so it's not that fresh in my memory anymore. But I had plans to go visit him in Boston this weekend. I think it was like, it was like the third week of September. So I was like 3 or 4 weeks into law school now and like kind of getting into the groove of things. But he had just become so distant. And I was so excited to go see him because things had just been weird between us. And so I pack little baby Cleo and Luna up in their carrier and we get on the train to go to Boston from New York. And I get off the train and I hadn't seen him for like 3 or 4 weeks. And so I was so excited to see him. And he knew like I was really stressed with law school, and like we had plans to just kind of like chill and have like a cute night between the two of us to like, you know, reunite and whatever. And I get there and he has like 30 people over, and he is like cuddled on the couch with this girl who used to always like mock our relationship and like tell us we were gonna break up, like literally cuddling on the couch. And obviously like I feel so upset, but I know that if I show him upset, then I will like get in trouble with him. So I try to just play it off and I'm like, whatever. And he takes Cleo and Luna, like grabs their carrier and goes and puts them in his bedroom. And then they go in his bedroom with Cleo and Luna and lock the door. And I'm sorry, but these are my daughters. Nothing makes my blood boil more than the fact that he like went in and locked the door with them. And they probably were like discussing like how he could break up with me this night. And he definitely like intentionally pushed me to break up with him for sure. I'm like talking to his friends, like catching up, trying not to cry. And I'm like, can you talk for a second? And he was like, yeah, I'll meet you in my room in like a little bit. And so I go in his room and I start sobbing because I'm just like so upset. And he is just like smoking with his friends. They all leave his apartment and go outside to smoke and are hanging out. They finally come back like a half an hour later, and he comes in his room and talks to me, and I'm just like crying, saying I'm upset and I feel like he doesn't like me anymore because he didn't. And I was like upset that the girl was like all over him. And I was also trying to say like I'm stressed about law school. And he told me, I remember so vividly, he was like, you need to really, really appreciate what it feels like to be with me, because if you continue to act like this, you're going to lose me like sooner than you really thought you were going to lose me. And so then like that makes me stop crying for a second, and I'm like trying to chill out, but I'm like, can you just ask everyone to leave and can we like have a second with each other? Like I just feel very overwhelmed. And so he tells me he's going to have everyone leave in like a little bit. So he goes back out. I'm in his room and I'm trying to do my reading for school, and I'm like sobbing over the page, like dripping tears on the page. And he finally comes back in, everyone's left, and I'm like still crying because I'm just upset. And then he freaks out and he goes, okay, that's it. I knew you were insane. I'm tired of you manipulating me. And he's like, you need to get out of my apartment right now. If you don't get out in the next 10 minutes, I'm going to call security on you and we're done. And it was like the most like heartless breakup I've ever had in my life. It felt so sudden. Like obviously there was so much build up to it, but it felt so sudden at the time. And like he made me feel like it was just all my fault and I had just like messed up so bad. And I think that's why it took me so long to get over this breakup. So keep in mind, it's now like 11 p.m. in Boston when he's breaking up with me, telling me he's going to call security on me and have them escort me out of his apartment. And I can't get on a train back to New York right now, nor do I want to go sit on a train for 4 hours by myself. So I call my parents and ask them to pick me up. They live 2 hours away. And so they leave and come down to pick me up in Boston, and I have to wait 2 hours. So I'm like, can I please just like wait in your apartment for my parents to get here? And he's like, you can wait in my apartment for them to get here if you promise to not shed one tear. But if I see one tear drop down your face, then you're going to have to go wait in the lobby and I'm going to call security on you. So I'm like sitting there for 2 hours, like I was trying so hard not to cry and hold my tears in and waiting for them to pick me up. Meanwhile, he's like on the phone with his friends, like cracking up, laughing, like planning like their evening plans for that night. And like they're all planning on coming back over once I leave, and just acting like nothing happened and he's not affected at all. Yeah, it was the harshest breakup ever. My parents finally get there and pick me up, and I like bring my suitcase and Cleo and Luna down, and I'm in the car sobbing the whole way home. And just to put the cherry on top of everything, Cleo and Luna at this time had parasites. It was very hard to get rid of them. They had them from when I adopted them from the shelter, and that caused them to have diarrhea, and they had been traveling all day, the poor little girls. So in the car, Luna had somehow gotten out of her carrier and onto my lap and diarrheaed all over my lap. And then Cleo, like, I think she got stressed and she diarrheaed in the carrier. So luckily we had like my dog's carrier in the car. We had to transfer them to this. I have diarrhea all over my pants, so I have to like take my pants off, throw them away, throw the carrier away, and like I'm sobbing and now covered in diarrhea, which was just a whole other thing. But anyway, we went completely no contact after that. I mean, he never spoke to me again until like years later. And it was so hard for me to get over, because the whole time, like every single day, I would just sit in my room and cry because I thought that the breakup was entirely my fault. He made me believe that I was always pushing him to break up with me. And so I felt like I had like finally caused him to do the final push, and he made me think that I was like so unlovable and so like I should have just been so lucky to be with him. And I think that's like still kind of stuck with me this day. I definitely have some issues with that, but I went to therapy like about 2 months after the breakup because I was just having so much trouble getting over it. And this therapist brought up like gaslighting and told me what gaslighting was, and told me about like narcissistic behavior and like psychopathic behavior. And she was like, he literally was like, she was like, I can't say for sure, but it sounds like he was a psychopath, and he was like insanely gaslighting you. And I didn't even know what gaslighting was, but it started to kind of make sense to me, because I was like, oh my God, like he made me think I was so insane. And like, I really, maybe I'm not as insane as I thought I was, but I still, like, even going to therapy and like learning what gaslighting was, like that helped, but I still just had such a guilt, because I thought this was like the best relationship I could ever have, and I would never get over it, and I just messed everything up, and I'm such an idiot. And it took, the only thing that got me over it was, remember how I told you that girl was like cuddling on the couch with him when I got there the night he broke up with me? She called me 9 or 10 months after we've broken up, and I get a call from her, and I don't know who it is. I just see it's a Boston number, and I answer the phone, and she's like, hi Callie, it's blank. And she's like, don't hang up, I know you don't want to talk to me, but I need to tell you something. And like, turns out like she and him started dating like immediately after we started dating. I guess he had been like trying to date her the whole time we were dating, and then they got together like once he finally broke up with me, which is definitely what they were talking about in his room. But anyway, she like just told me all of this stuff. She told me how he had always been cheating on me and admitted to her that he cheated on me. He cheated on me with her as well. And then he like now was doing the same thing to her and super controlling over her. She like just told me like how he was just controlling in the same way as he was with me, and he did some like really messed up things to her. So she was calling me because she didn't know what to do. And I seriously, like, that phone call like is what got me over it, and I can like not thank her enough for calling me, because it made me realize that like I wasn't actually insane, it wasn't my fault. And it sounds so dumb for it to take that call, but to finally hear, like, I never had solid proof that he was cheating on me, and to finally hear like all the tactics he had behind cheating on me, and like everything he did, and how he was like possessive and like abusive to someone else, like it finally made me realize like, oh my God, this was not my fault, because the whole time I had just thought like I messed everything up and it was the greatest relationship, and I had just such an intense guilt. And then to hear that like my intuition and my gut feeling was right, and he really was cheating on me, and I wasn't insane, that's what like finally got me over the breakup and released me. Between him and my boyfriend before him, I like now feel like I'm like so scared to show like emotion, because I'm scared like it will like push people away, because like he had a rule that like I couldn't cry, and then my other boyfriend, like if I said anything wrong, he'd block my number. So between the two of them, and then like this weird feeling of like this ex like convincing me that like I'm unlovable, I think it's like stuck with me in a weird way, and I probably should go to like more therapy over it, because I think maybe that's why I like put myself in these weird situationships now where I know they're not going to end well, because I think subconsciously like maybe I'm a little worried that like I am unlovable. Like I know objectively I'm not, but I mean, that was my last breakup, and I've been single since. But if you are going through a breakup right now, like I thought I would never get over this breakup, and I mean, it took me like a year, but I finally did get over it. So if you're going through a breakup right now, I promise it will get better, and I'm sending you so much love, and my DMs are always open. Sorry, this episode was so rambly and long, but it was just like, this was, I mean, terrible person, crazy relationship, but I'm over it, and if I can get over it, you can get over it too. But I love you, and I will talk to you next week.